Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Trek Cat. So today is going to be a kind of a docu type episode, all right? And it's going to be on something very special and near and dear to my heart, and that is this: Star Trek is contributions to culture and to canon. All right. Now, I was wondering if I should make this all, how I should go about approaching this particular subject. And I figured the only way I can do it is truthfully, honestly, and by my perspective. Now, in doing something like this, you normally run the risk of people being offended by a belief you might have or a perspective that you might share. All right. If that is the case, I really apologize to anybody or any of my viewers or subscribers who feel that way. However, please understand that a belief isn't something that you should get upset about if it differs from yours. It is a grand opportunity to understand a different perspective and maybe even learn something about your own. All right. So I got my notes, right? But I just wanted to keep my notes as always so that I can kind of stay on, on target. All right. So I wanted to begin this with what Star Trek means to the culture. All right. I don't know if you guys could tell by the gray that's in my beard. I'm kind of an older guy, kind of an older man, you know. To be more specific, I remember watching black and white syndicated shows on television with my dad and his friend Brian back in the late 70s. Now, I don't know if any of you guys ever had the opportunity to watch black and white films, but in black and white films, it wasn't too much representation, all right, for black people. The black people that were in those black and white films were usually regulated to being mammies or idiots or coons, right? Maybe some type of slave position, all right? Some type of servant position, all right? So when I used to watch things like Gunsmoke, when I used to watch things like The Lone Ranger with my dad, when I used to watch shows like Battlestar Galactica, which wasn't in black and white, but I'm trying to get you guys to see what I'm talking about. And Battlestar Galactica was one of the first series that I had ever seen a prominent black dude, but he was kind of on the bad side most of the time, so you can't really trust him. All right. So when I got into, even with horror movies, if they were to have had somebody black in them, that person would usually be the first person to die, and most of the times they're in the most horrific way possible. You know what I mean? So that's why that particular joke came about. Jokes are based on irony. You know what I mean? So needless to say, most of the shows that I watched when I was growing up didn't properly represent a positive black role model. All right. Now, you had those shows that was different, like like I Spy had Bill Cosby, stuff like that. It was this other spy show too. But anyway, long story short, I ended up getting into Star Trek because of my dad. Star Trek the original series, all right, and then Star Trek the Next Generation aired. And in Star Trek the Next Generation, they had a black dude. They had a black lady in Star Trek the original series. She was a communications officer, one of the lowest ranking. All right. And the next one, you had Geordi LaForge, and he was the pilot, and eventually went on to being an engineer. But if you think about Geordi, he was more of an incel. You know what I mean? He wasn't really successful in relationships. He was kind of awkward. Extremely intelligent, though, but socially awkward. He didn't really have a family. His only friends were an android and a little kid. They kind of did Geordi a little bit bad on that show. He had a handicap. You know what I mean? He couldn't even be all person. Yeah, he had the best vision of the series, but Just like the little Pinocchio boy, he always wanted to long for a regular sight. You know what I mean? So eventually, we got a chance to see D Space Nine. Now, you got to understand the situation that I was in when D Space Nine aired. When D Space Nine aired, I shared a room because I was in the military with 5 other individuals. These 5 individuals were all from down south, right? And this was before the time where, long before the time where they decided to ban Confederate flags and all that type of memorabilia, all right? So it was totally fine to have wall lockers. You open them up and it's big old Confederate flags, or when we got to our own barracks rooms, man, your roommate will have big old Confederate flags flying over his bed, just stuck to the wall or whatever. They'll be listening to all this. Well, I'm proud to be in them. All that, and all that good homeboy, down old boy, country boy song music and stuff like that. And they were really, I'm not saying that they were racist, all right. However, one of them did. Like, side note, the first time that I met this dude, right, he was standing in the door as we were all coming in, and he was counting. I was trying to figure out what the fuck he counting. So I'm like, dude, what are you counting? This was his response to me, all right. His response was, I have never seen live black people, only on TV. So I was counting because I was amazed, so I can tell my parents later how many black people I seen in real life. Now, that's kind of fucked up, right? But as you just got to be like, okay, you just ignorant. I understand. You're not stupid, not right. You're just a bit ignorant. You know what I mean? So end up becoming one of my best homies. There, right? Name was Tick. I called him Tick from like a cartoon. Tick reminded me of him. Anyway, so when I used to put on D Space 9, they used to have a problem with D Space. They ain't like it. As a matter of fact, nobody I talked to during like the first 3 seasons, nobody I talked to, even after DS9 went off the TV, that called themselves avid Trekkies. Like, this is what they do. I ask them, hey man, how you like the original series? Oh, it's nice. How you like Next Generation? Oh, that's great. How you like Voyager? Oh, yeah, it's pretty good. How do you like Deep Space Nine? Never seen it. Hell. Okay, and I know he probably gonna feel a certain kind of way about me telling you guys this story, but I'm doing it anyway. Lore Reloaded has a whole lot of subscribers to his channel where he talks about Star Trek, and he does a lot of the subjects that he cover very well, very well. A lot of great research goes into his videos, but he lends a lot more politically. All right, he interjects a lot of that into it. Now, the thing is that even Lore Reloaded used to have like these bad thoughts about Deep Space Nine. And one day I asked him as a subscriber, I was like, hey man, have you ever even seen Deep Space Nine in its entirety? And he was like, no. And this is a person who's dedicated a channel to talking about this subject, Star Trek. You know what I'm saying? And you have omitted one of the best, I mean, if not the best series of this subject. You know what I mean? Like, so I used to always tell him, man, look, you got to watch Deep Space Nine. You got to watch Deep Space Nine. He finally ends up watching it, and now on his channel he says that that's his best series. Okay, so, and that was recent, like 2, 3, 4 years ago. Star Trek Deep Space Nine been off for decades. You know what I mean? Like, it was people who had never brought themselves to watch this show after decades. Like, you know what I mean? So, but they've seen every other series, every TV show, spin-off, read the comic books, not Deep Space Nine. But anyway, so when I used to put this show on, they used to feel a certain kind of way about it. Talked about how unrealistic Star Trek was and all this kind of stuff. How unrealistic mermaids are. All this type of stuff. So the thing is this: when I looked at Star Trek Deep Space Nine, all right, as a Trekkie, my chest went out a little bit further, because yes, Star Trek has always shown diversity, infinite combinations in its shows. This was the first time it truly lived up to that expectation. You have a black, look, first, he was a black commander running the station. I already told you he should have been a commodore or at least the rank of captain, but whatever. he ends up getting his captain rank in like season 3. But anyway, he was the first black male lead, or lead period for that matter, for a Star Trek series. All right. And not only that, he was he was a single father. You know what I mean? He had lost his wife. Look, everything. Look, I'm gonna have to start reading from my notes now. Look, he was the first black Star Trek series showrunner. You know, the relationship between him and Jake. You know, as a single dad, loss of his wife and mother, and how he always kept his black culture something that, not that he paraded around, but something that he was just obviously in love with, that he admired. All right, his cooking in the Louisiana style, you know, in the Southern style, you know, the things that he had around his room, his African art and statues, his African and black memorabilia, you know, the rugs and you know, and ceremonial items that he had all around his quarters, you know. He was, you know, his strength of character. You know, he was flawed, but those flaws only showed when it was something that had to do with his duty or his honor as a Starfleet captain. Do you know what I mean? Like, you guys remember that episode in the Pale Moonlight? It's one of the most famous Deep Space Nine episodes ever. All right. Think of the things that he did. And, you know, people ask, okay, well, what would Picard would have lost? He wouldn't have been able to do that. He wouldn't have been able to reconcile that, all right, and come out with a successful means to where as the Alpha Quadrant would have been saved. You know what I mean? The only person that I think would have been made the decision closest to that would have been Kirk, all right, because we've seen him in canon make strong decisions like that, to where it's between his honor or his convictions as a man, you know what I mean, or the oath that he took as a captain versus against what was right, you know what I mean, or what was necessary. So he was, you know, the conviction and love for his family, his friends and subordinates. He was one of the first captains that chilled out, invited the crew to his room, you know, for dinner, you know, went with them on a holodeck when they needed to save Vic Fontaine. He was professional, but you can approach him with anything. He's a real cool dude. You know what I mean? Like, it showed a side of Starfleet captains that wasn't so uptight. You know what I mean? He was free to be himself and display his culture, and respected and even learned the culture of others. It's one thing to respect your own culture and don't give a damn about nobody else's. All right, that's disrespectful. All right, but not only did he highlight the things he loved about his culture, all right, he also learned and experienced the Bajoran cultures, all right, the Cardassian cultures, all right. There was a lot, the Trill cultures, okay, and he showed his son to these things. He was always, you know, he'd be like, yo, let's go build this, you know, let's go build this windsurf thing and go out. It was nice as a young black man to see that, because that was the same experiences I had with my dad. But it wasn't what was shown on TV. You know what I mean? It wasn't, this wasn't shown on TV. If it was some dude tap dancing or trying to entertain somebody. You know what I mean? So um, he built a lasting community and world with Bajor. You know, he saved a quadrant. He traveled to a higher plane. This is a black dude. You know what I mean? He overcame and fought the racism and bigotry that he experienced in the past with dignity. He still held true to himself. Even when he broke down with dignity, to where you understood why he broke down. Because this was things that as black people we feel that we can't necessarily convey. All right. So ends up marrying another black woman, you know, Cassidy Yates. She don't say nothing, you know, she don't ostracize Jake. She take Jake on. Jake takes her on as being like, hey, I love my mother, but you are somebody I love as well. Because you are not my mother. I'm not gonna mistreat you. I'm not gonna dishonor you. You know what I'm saying? You are here because you love my dad. My dad loves you, which means as extension, I love you. Stepmom, let's do this. You know what I mean? That it was, and then how Bajor ends up basically accepting them as being part of Bajor. You know, Jake, his brother and or sister, and you know, Cassidy Yates. You know, so And finally, personally, you know, like I said, it was finally something that I as a black man could reference as far as in the science fiction or fantasy realm, to where as I could be like, hey, you know what? I want to be like that dude. When I put on my Starfleet uniform, and I shave myself to a goatee, people would know exactly who I'm trying to be. You know what I mean? It's not like, I wonder who are you. No, it's Benjamin Sisko. You know what I mean? So for the culture, that was something really cool. All right. Now let's go into what they contributed canonically. Deep Space Nine contributed to Star Trek canonically. All right, man. Look, I'ma just run through it. All right. It was the first time they showed the events of Wolf 359. All right, it was the first show that went into the Orion Syndicate, went into Bajoran culture, Cardassian culture, introduced us to the Changelings, the Jem'Hadar, the Vorta, the Marquis. All right, the concept of a stable wormhole, the Pirates and the Prophets, a Defiant class vessel, and the only vessel to go to have a clause, an exception to the Treaty of Algernon. All right, the Trill culture, Section 31, stable augments, namely Bashir, because every other augment we met up until then was worthy of being locked up and killed. All right, um, it led into Voyager. All right, because the bad lines and all that stuff in the Marquis was introduced in Deep Space Nine. All right, the Dahar Masters, a first look at a dark Starfleet of Federation, one that's on its heels, been beat down in war. A Starfleet that isn't as arrogant or as a pretentious. All right, um, religious based Trek, because everything before then was more atheist or independent. All right, baseball with a Vulcan. Okay, old jazz tunes through Vic Fontaine, Ferengi culture. All right, freedom fighter versus terrorist concepts. All right, the Bring, darts. Right, playing darts. Morn. We was just talking about Morn. Morn, man. Who don't know Morn? All right. Let me see. Transportation sniper rifles. One of the most devious weapons in all of Star Trek besides the transporter. All right. Most expansive Star Trek space battles. Before then, there was no space battles that was so intricate and as expansive as before Deep Space Nine. Until Deep Space Nine. All right. A mirror universe canon expansion. Yeah, we dabbled in a mirror universe, in Mirror Mirror, but we really got into the politics, what was going on, how the tides had turned in the mirror universe. All right, who was running things, the counterparts and how we interacted with them in the mirror universe. All right, these are just some of the things that Star Trek Deep Space Nine contributed to the whole Star Trek canon, and why it is so rich of a series, and why I truly love it as a series. All right, it's those two reasons: for the culture and for its contributions to canon. Can you get, like, the Dominion War? Can you guys imagine? Even with today's Trek, Picard and all that kind of stuff, they even reference the effects of the Dominion War. You know what I mean? So Deep Space Nine formed so much in the mythos of Star Trek canon that you can't deny those contributions, and you got to give it credit. But I didn't want this video to go too long. Please let me know if I missed anything in the comments. Let me know how you guys like this particular mini docu about Deep Space Nine, and about how it has affected Star Trek canon for everybody, and how it has affected media culture for me and people who may think like me. So thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and as always, peace, recycle, and say to whales, you guys be cool.